In lesson 111, we're going to be looking at word problems, but they are going to be word problems that require us to come up with three equations that use three variables. And then we're going to use the methods that we have learned for systems of three equations with three unknowns. So, hardest part is very often figuring out exactly what those equations need to be, how we need to write those. So let's see what we can come up with here. So there were 35 nickels. So I'm starting off with, oh, I've got 35 nickels. But wait a minute. I got to read it a little bit more carefully than that. That's 35 nickels, dimes, and quarters. That means in all. Most of the time, the book does not add those words in all. Who can give me an equation for 35 nickels, dimes, quarters in all? Riley. Okay, then for our second equation, we want to be able to say if we count up how much they're worth, we have a total of $5. Who can help me do that equation? Caden? And I'm going to say no. I've got two problems with this. One is decimals are hard to work with, and so I'd like to not have them, so I'd rather do it in cents so I don't have any decimals. Second one is if I do it with decimals, I'm tempted to make the mistake that you just made there with the nickels. That's not how we write 5 cents when we're doing it as dollars. It would need to be 0.05 on there. So what I would like us to do is not do that with decimals at all. Let's just think about the whole thing in terms of cents. A nickel is 5 cents. A dime is 10 cents. A quarter is 25 cents. And $5 is 500 cents. If I did set it up correctly with decimals at first, my next step would have been to multiply by 100 and get rid of those decimals because they're just a lot harder to work with. So is everybody good with that one? Right, the third sentence in this one, we need to be careful on because English is sometimes a kind of strange language. If I just say, don't worry about writing down an equation for it, but if I say I have twice as many quarters as I have nickels, which one do I have more of? I have more quarters. You understand if it's not in a math problem, if I say I have twice as many quarters and nickels, that I'm saying I have more quarters. Everybody comfortable with that much? But then I'm tempted because it says 2 times as many quarters. I'm tempted to write it like that. But that means if I take the number of quarters, multiply it by 2, I get a bigger number for n. And that's not what I want. So what I should have said is Q is twice the number of nickels. So anytime you have that twice as many, a third as many, be very careful as you set up that equation because it's usually going to mean set it up kind of backwards of what it sounds like. So now we have three equations, three variables. And Elias, what do you want us to do next to try to solve this? So we could change both of the Q's to a 2n, right? Which means the first equation would become 2n or n plus d plus 2n, so 3n plus d is 35. Hopefully I got that right in there. Does that look right to you guys? And then I could go ahead right now and change this q to a 2n, or I could divide that whole red one by 5 to get smaller numbers. What do you guys think? So if we divide that red one by 5 first, we have n plus 2d plus 5q, and q is now 2n, and that equals 100, I think. So n plus 10n gives me 11n, plus 2d is 100. Thumbs up, thumbs down, make sure I'm not making any mistakes. I've been having a Monday all day long. Okay, now what should we do with this system of two equations that just has n and d in there? Alex, what would you do next? How? Everybody comfortable with multiplying this by -2 so that it becomes -6n minus 2d equals -70. So 5n is 30. And everybody shout out how many nickels? N equals 6 is not enough. We need the word. We need to label that nickels. And nickels is a tricky word to spell. If I'm not sure, I look back in my book or at my test question. It's E-L, not L-E. So let's get that spelled correctly as we label it. So 6 nickels. Still need quarters and dimes. We have a bunch of equations up here. Grazia, what would you get next? Which equation would you use next to get either quarters or dimes? But that's going to still have two things in it that I don't know. Can you find anything that just has N and one other letter in it? So if we plug into that, how many quarters do I have? So we use that to come up with 12 quarters. Now we know nickels and quarters. Daniel, which one do you think is the easiest one to go to next? We've got nickels, we've got quarters, we need dimes. Which equation should we use? We already did that to get the number of quarters. I need the number of dimes. Okay, so maybe go back to this very first one. N is 6 plus D plus 12 is 35. 6 and 12 is 18. Subtract that. How many dimes, everybody? So 17 dimes. Everybody good with that one? Okay, the next one's going to have a different kind of value. It's not going to be money value. It's going to be weight value. So let's see if we can get this one set up. Okay. Ella, give me an equation for my first sentence. What do the rest of you think? Thumbs up or down? Okay, now I need to go to my one about weight. Well, the blues are 1. That's a little hard to work with. Let's move to the greens are 4 pounds each. So if you have one green, it weighs 4 pounds. And I'm going to keep asking you questions till it sounds like everybody's answering. One green weighs 4 pounds. 2 greens weigh, 3 greens weigh, 4 greens weigh. Not everybody's answering yet. 5 greens weigh, 100 greens weigh. So what are you doing? Multiplying by 4. So to get those green weights, you took how many you had times 4. So the blues only weigh 1. You can write the 1 or not in front of it. If the yellows weigh 5 pounds, what should I write for the yellows? Plus 5y, and the total weight is 25. Mateo, what about an equation for one more yellow than green? How's that look to the rest of you? All right, got a thumbs up on that. Okay, now what do you think is going to make the most sense for us to do? We have three equations. We have three letters. Kaylee. Okay, so if we use this for a substitution, we're going to plug it into both of the others. So that's going to be a g plus 1, and this is going to be a g plus 1 that is multiplied by a 5. So my first one becomes b plus g plus g. So b plus 2g plus 1 is 7, or just equals 6. Does that look okay? And then the second one becomes b plus 4g plus, if I distribute, 5g plus 5 right there. So 1b, 4g plus 5g is 9g, plus 5 equals 25, or just equals 20 on that. Gabe, now what would you do as the next step in solving this system? Which equation? You do the bottom? Well, either one. I'm going to do the top just because that way I'll end up with some positive things. That would give me 7g is 14. If you did the bottom one instead, you'd have negative 7g is negative 14. So either way, g is 2 for our number of greens. JC, what do you want to get next? And what does that mean we have for y now? So the 2 plus 1 becomes 3 for our number of yellows. And then we need to find whichever equation we like for the number of blues. Melissa, pick an equation to use to get blues. We've got a bunch of them up all over the board. Which one do you like? The b plus g plus y? So b plus the greens are now 2. The y's are 3, needs to be 7. So everybody, how many blues? How do you feel so far? All right, final example for today. I would like for you to write down all three equations and then stop. We'll solve it together, but see if you can come up with the three equations on your own for this. The first two aren't too bad. The one that's probably going to be a little bit tricky, we have another half as many as kind of equations. So be careful when you get to that one.